How's it going? This is Syx String.
Starlight Ironhoof.
Strain.
And Zeta Prime.
And this is Elements of Harmony. Tonight on the show, we introduce another regular host, Syx String, and are joined by another member of our crew, executive producer, Infinite. Also tonight, we have a feature interview with an Everfree regular, a very special Brony with 2 decades of experience as a DJ, from spinning real vinyl in the 90s to pumping digital beats out every Saturday on Everfree. She is an electronic music aficionado, and she joins us tonight to talk about electronic music in the fandom.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Elements of Harmony. This is Starlight Ironhoof here, and I wanted to let you guys know that we are bringing a couple new members from the staff in today for this show. First up is Syx String. Syx String, tell us a little bit about yourself.
How's it going? I am a musician, I guess. I don't really write anything, but I have been playing guitar for 9 years. Played cello for 4 years before that. I'm currently in college for music theory. Well, not for music theory, but I'm taking music theory. And it's pretty awesome.
And do you have any influences that have driven your guitar playing style?
Jimi Hendrix, for one, obviously. Sinister Gates of Avenged Sevenfold.
Nice. I love Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah. He is a freaking ridiculous guitar player.
Yeah. It's funny, I remember I was watching a behind-the-scenes thing when they were doing their self-titled album, and I remember him commenting on the guy they brought in to do the slide string guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And he was saying, great. Yeah, like, he's an amazing guitarist, but, like, he was listening to the slide string guitar guy, and he said, I was just watching this guy, and like, he's coming up with things I would never even think of doing, and, like, it's just... He was in awe of the sheer musical ability of this slide string guitarist.
Yeah, it's definitely a sad thing about being a musician, is the fact that there's almost always someone better than you. And
it's funny, too, because a lot of these musicians that are just really amazing are studio musicians that play on, like, a whole bunch of tracks that, like, you've probably heard, but you just never really thought about.
Funny story, actually, my dad was a studio musician for Warner Brothers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he actually played on stuff like Crossroads, the movie with Ralph Macchio, Steve Vai. And then he also played on Dune, right at the very end.
Did he ever talk about it, or what it was like?
Yeah, he said it was tough, because they pretty much just have you come in, look at a sheet of paper, play, and then get out. So you have to really know what you're doing, because you don't really have a whole lot of time to practice.
Cool.
All right, hey guys, this is Zeta Prime, and I'm going to introduce our next guest host, Infinite.
Hey everybody, I am Infinite Pony. I am one of the executive producers here on Elements of Harmony.
What exactly made you want to start producing this show?
Well, that's actually a funny story. For the longest time, I got into the Brony fandom back midway through season 1. And for the longest time, I was so closet Brony, it's not even funny. And given enough time and encouragement and finding some other Brony friends, also one thing that really helped, 2 things. One, Black Griffin's proud to be a Brony. I know there are thousands of Bronies out there that probably are more proud of their Broniness than they were before because of that song, and then also because of U4 Strain with Great to Be Different. Those 2 songs combined pretty much gave me that little push over the edge, and once I went over the edge of hiding my Broniness, I went all out. I wanted to give back to the community because it's an awesome fandom. So the 2 things I know how to do is come up with ideas and volunteer. So for the volunteering, I work BronyCon staff, and I love every minute of it. And then I also decided, hey, this fandom's been around a while. It produces a lot of really great music that is filled my iPod. And yet there's no show really, going and looking at the musicians and talking to them about what makes them want to make their music. And so I sat there one day and finally it hit me over the head. Hey, I should probably do something about that. And so here we are today.
So tonight we're going to play a little sampling of a mix that was done by a certain DJ in this fandom. And they debuted it at Nightmare Nights in Dallas, Texas. And actually, it was so rocking that the dance floor completely fell apart into pieces. So check this mix out.
Octavia, come on. You don't mean that. Let me down. Do you really just... Wait, no, please, oh, Octavia.
Octavia, you're on in 5 minutes.
Fun fact, there's such a thing as a girl brony. Who knew?
No way.
What?
No.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
And guess what? There's such a thing as a girl brony who is an awesome DJ. It is my great honor to introduce a wonderful girl Brony, who is a DJ and also a host of another show here on Everfree Network. Please welcome to the show, DJ One Trick.
Why, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Moving faders.
I like it. So, welcome to Elements of Harmony. Tell me a little bit about yourself, I guess.
Actually, strangely enough, I wasn't a DJ for a while. I mean, I was, and then I wasn't, and then Bronies, and then someone was playing with Tractor, and I said, you know what? I'll get back into DJing. That's pretty much how it came around.
Cool. And
if you want the longer version, I could absolutely go into this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the long version of how DJ One Trick came about. A lot of people know that I was one of the 3 people who started Everfree Network. It really comes down to we were sitting in Mumble and we were just having a kickback night and we were just playing music and enjoying just hanging out with each other. And then A-Track is there piping his other computer into the Mumble, just mixing random songs together. And I'm like, what do you got, turntables over there? What's going on? He's like, oh, no. I'm playing with Tractor. And, it's pretty awesome. And I'm like, oh, you mean computers do this now? I was completely naive to this because I started out with vinyls and standard turntables. You put a record on, you put a needle on, you play music, you mix it. And I was like, whoa, yeah, that's pretty cool. So I started looking at Tractor and I'm like, okay, too simple. Guess what? I'm going to buy a controller. So a week later, I get a controller and just like everyone else, oh my God, I have to get a mix track. Okay. So mix track. And I started playing, piping it through, Skype, through Mumble, and everyone's like, oh my God, you need to do a show. I'm like, okay, I guess I can do this. So I grabbed pretty much every single Brony song that had a beat to it. And I'm like, okay, we're going to mix this. I already know how to do it. For a while, it was a complete wreck because I'm so not used to a controller. I'm used to things spinning and being able to move a needle and things like that. Of course, after a little bit, it got good enough. And they're like, okay, do a show. And there we go. That's pretty much the beginning of DJ One Trick. The rest is kind of like history.
Awesome.
So One Trick,
Yes.
from past conversations we've had, am I accurate in saying that you pride yourself in being one of the DJs that uses exclusively Brony music in your mixes?
Considering that this is the fandom, we're all Bronies here, there is quite a bit of EDM Brony music out there. So why not? Why not just be the purist? I could easily pull up tons of BT, Armin, Paul Van Dyke, Sasha, all the way back to mid-90s where there's Young American Primitive, a lot of trance. I could easily throw any of that into my mix. But I'm like, I'm going to be that DJ in this fandom that highlights all the amazing music that all these producers have put out. It's so good. And it's amazing. I've been a part of so many other fandoms, and this is really the only one where it seems like all these creative musicians jumped in and said, all right, we're making awesome music. And that's what I want to highlight. Mixology has turned into where all of those producers get their stuff mixed into what you would hear if there was such a thing in this world as a Brony dance club.
So how big is your music library that you have to work with?
Surprisingly, it's not very big, but it is 276 different tracks.
But the best of the best.
It is. It really is. It's a lot of handpicked stuff. And unfortunately, just being such a busy college student and a part-time job, I miss a lot of what's out there. And I get a lot of music based on people's suggestions, especially within my realm. Not only is there a lot of music out there, but there's got to be a style. I have a style that I come from a background of doing a lot of trance and then going and doing a lot of house music. I don't do drum and bass. I don't do a lot of dubstep. A lot of slower tempos I usually stay away from. My range is anywhere from about 125 to 140, depending on if I'm doing trance or if I want to do kind of club/house music. So going through YouTube, trying to find these songs, it leaves my library a little lacking. You know, you have someone like Midley, he's got like 1 million songs and he finds all these awesome tracks, and I envy his library more than my own. I just don't have the time to do that. So I get on Twitter, I say, hey, find me some music that you would like to hear on the show. And people send me all kinds of suggestions and I throw them in there.
And we wanted to touch on the show a little bit later too, but
Mhm.
just still while we're on the topic of you and how you kind of got into this fandom, why ponies?
Well, why not? I mean,
It's a loaded question, I understand, but...
Well, let's start in the past. I'm probably older than the standard Brony. You know, I just turned 36 this year. So I grew up with My Little Pony. I watched Generation 1 when it first came out. And so really, I've been there since the inception. And it's kind of a funny story. How I got into the Generation 4 is we were sitting around my apartment and my hubby is like, you got to watch this. It's pretty funny. I'm like, yeah, all right. He's like, it's My Little Pony. Instantly, I'm thinking the older ones, and I'm like, oh my God, there's no way I want to watch this again. And he's like, no. You don't understand. Like, Sibsy works on it. And we actually, he knew Sibsy way before all of Ponies, way before Ed, Edd and Eddy and all that. And I was like, all right. So we sat down and we watched the first episode I ever saw was like Bridal Gossip. And we're like, okay, that was pretty cool. And it's funny because I'm sitting there, I'm going, what's the white one called? What's the purple one called? It was great. And then the first time I heard Tara Strong's voice, I'm like, oh my God, it's Powerpuff Girls all over again. I was a humongous fan of Powerpuff Girls. And then to hear Tara in another role like this, I'm like, oh. So yeah, that was it right there. It came down to the point. I got on pretty early, so I'm sitting there waiting for more episodes. I'm like, oh my God, it's Saturday, another episode's coming out. I can't wait. Yeah, so that's pretty much how it worked.
Awesome.
Period.
So one trick, other than DJing, because you said you didn't pick up DJing until a little bit later. Did you do any music before DJing?
Well, DJing actually started when I was 16, so you're looking at about 20 years ago. And before that, I have been playing piano since I was 5 years old. So I have about 31 years experience playing piano. I've also been in middle and high school marching, symphony, and orchestra. I've taken first and second chair in the Florida Orchestra as a teenager. I've played pretty much everything from piano to cello to alto sax, baritone sax, sometimes percussion. And now I am teaching myself how to play violin at the moment, which is not going so well because I keep trying to play it like an upright, and that doesn't work. So I might actually go take professional lessons here once my curriculum in college kind of settles down and I have a little extra time.
I hear you also play the cello.
Yep. Although I haven't played in a very long time.
Syx String and I both also have played and play the cello.
Nice.
Only through middle school, though.
I still have my cello right now. It's sitting down in the living room.
It's very cool. It is probably one of the neatest instruments, and especially like the show has just blown up a certain character, which is completely awesome. And it's just kind of sparked that interest in wanting to get back to it again. It's just a whole matter of time. There's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah, cello really is one of the most dynamic instruments to work with in a mix.
I love it. It has such a range, and it's amazing. And to play it, to listen to it is just, it's like a dream.
Earlier today, I was listening in on another Everfree Network show, Sketchy Sounds, and Saturn was on there with his cello. And if you take a standard cello and combine it with the current technology that we have, the computerized technology, you can do all sorts of things. I heard a metal cello today, and I don't even have words for that.
That's very true.
Yeah, they have some cool things too. It's not pony related, but if anybody gets the urge to see some awesome music stuff, go to YouTube and type in the Piano Guys. And
Cello Wars.
Yes, they do.
Love
such
those
awesome
guys.
stuff.
And they
You know-
they did some work with an awesome electric cello that doesn't have a body at all. It's literally
Yes.
just a frame.
Yes. This is what you do, all of you fantastic listeners out there. You look up Piano Guys and Lindsey Sterling, the Mission Impossible song.
Yep.
And it's fantastic.
It is. And in this vein of sort of classical music, would it be fair to say that you're classically trained?
I absolutely would say that. You know, you're talking about 30 plus years of sheet music and playing the ivory keys. And really that, you know, to segue into DJing, they, you know, all follow the same musical patterns. If you can count out measures, you can DJ. It's what it really comes down to.
And do you feel that your classical background has given you sort of an edge in the DJing world, or has made you more cognizant of the underlying intricacies of the music that you work with?
I would say that knowing how a conductor works is how you DJ, because really you're not, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I don't consider DJing playing an instrument, but you are conducting the music. You are pretty much setting the stage. You're doing the volume, you're setting the tempo, you're making sure everything flows together. You are a conductor in that sense. And understanding that right off the bat allowed me to really cut off a whole bunch of initial trial and error as far as being a DJ. I already understood how the music flowed. I understand where the timing comes from and how to bring a track into another track and make it sound like one song. So really, having that background initially made it just super simple.
So one trick, you were talking about how you're a purist and you're one of the hosts of a very long-running show on Everfree Network, Mixology. I was just wondering, with such a limited playlist of pony music while maintaining your own paradigm, do you ever run into any complications with that?
You know, I worry sometimes that people might get bored of the show, but I do try very hard to find new music and introduce it into it. Also, I try new techniques at times. Like, you have a DJ that will start a track, pretty much play it all the way through, and then the last 16 measures of the song, they start in the other mix, and it's basically just a long playlist. You know, that could be good if you were to like go out and all right, I'm going to go old school here. If you were to go out and buy a CD and it had music on it and you wanted to hear all that music but mixed together, that's what you would buy. That's all fine and good. And it works for things like radio and all that. But what you want to do in a situation where you want people to dance is you never really want to have a place where it's just beats and not much is going on, because people kind of get bored of that. So pulling in new techniques, like as soon as everything starts going to a downbeat, you mix in the new track and you bring it back up again. You top on effects, you get some flange in there and you twist it up a little bit. Maybe you put triplet beats. You take a song that would otherwise be something you hear all the time and you turn it into something else. You remix it live. You take I Am Octavia and add 2 tracks to it like I did, and you turn it into a more upbeat Titanium remix of I Am Octavia. It's taking what's out there and making it fresh again is what keeps people listening. And I love my fans. They're fantastic. They do so much to make the show what it is, especially, you know, suggesting new stuff to listen to. I just hope that they stick around and keep up this momentum, because without the fans, it just wouldn't be fun. I'm really doing it for everyone who listens. I'm not doing it for myself, although it is fun. I just like to make sure everyone else is having fun also. So as long as people keep coming back and aren't bored, I'm fine with that.
Just for the people that don't know, would you be able to describe Mixology?
Mixology is actually an incarnation from my want of doing a live show. We had a show on Everfree Network a while back called A State of Brony. That was a produced show by Thornair and myself. He would give me some tracks and a playlist, and I would put them together and produce them like they were an album cut. They were perfectly mixed together. Everything was on beat, and it was mastered. All the levels were perfect, and we would put it out there with a video, and that's all well and good. But really, my heart lies in the live show. I really wanted to make something that was spontaneous, room for errors, and if you ever listen to all the old shows, you can hear many times where I've messed things up. But really, that's what makes the show, is the human aspect to it, where there is no playlisting, there is no pre-recorded, it's all live. If my internet went out, the show would turn off. I told Thornair, I'm like, take your show and get there with, I think he was producing it with H-Mage, who is an awesome producer. He is one of the most fantastic producers and mixers that I've heard in a long time. He's real clean and real precise. And they continued the show on. And I went off and created Mixology, where I did it for probably 6-8 months by myself, and would go for anywhere from like an hour and a half up to like 3-4 hours. Just mixing everything I had, the entire library. Didn't matter what the tempo was, whatever, just to have fun. And people really responded to it.
Is it true that you did an 11-hour DJing session?
That is actually Midley's doing. He has, Midley, first of all, is probably my yin and yang counterpart there. He does all the stuff that I don't do. And he gets on there and he's like, I'm going to play my entire library and the 50 different remixes of the songs that I have, and it's going to be 11 hours long. And he does things like that quite often. Like, I'll switch it over to him, and he'll play, and he's like, oh, I'm going to do like an hour, and I come back 6 hours later, and he's still going. So that's what Mixology is about. It's about being that spontaneous craziness. And, if we screw up, we screw up. We're just people, as long as you're having fun, that's what we're there for.
Cool.
All right. So I know we've been talking a lot about your DJing. You also mentioned that you're going to college. As I understand, you're going in for computer science. Is that correct?
It's an engineering degree. It focuses a lot on electrical engineering and computer networks, a lot of communications. I'm really big into radio. I love radio. And a big majority of that is networking. When you give me a radio, some network equipment sitting right next to me, I got a stack of switches and routers. It's not common to find a whole lot of women in engineering, but I'm one of those extreme nerds, I guess.
Ain't nothing wrong with engineering. Sorry, I'm biased.
What are you planning to do with the engineering degree after you're done?
Loads of money! No, well,
it'd be nice
anyway, because my student loans are gonna kill me. What am I gonna do? I live in the land of Walmart.
Buy all the pony swag.
Well, yeah, but yeah. I mean, like I said, I live in the land of Walmart, and corporate office Walmart has already tried to hire me once, but I turned them down. Yeah. Ultimate job is really to sit around and make cables and configure routers. Yeah, it sounds weird, but that would be the most interesting thing to do for a job ever. Down the line, I would like to get into research and development, and that really requires the whole schooling background. You get more credibility when you can throw a bachelor's or a master's up and say, yes, I would like to R&D, all this kind of stuff.
So do you take any of the stuff that you learn in school and apply it to the music?
Funny enough, in one of my classes, they presented us with a microcontroller and said, whoever can take this home and do something with it and demonstrate it will get extra credit. And that sparked immediate interest to me because I grabbed it. I was the first one. Actually, I was the only one to take it home. And I ended up making a touch surface where all you had to do was touch it. Unfortunately, you did have to ground it. So you like holding onto a wire and touching the surface that I created out of a thin copper plate. But I wrote the software to control tractor with this microcontroller.
Neat.
So Yeah, it was pretty neat. And if anyone's interested and they want to play with it, it's called Makey Makey. It's basically an Arduino with a ramped up capacitive circuit in it, and it's pretty fun to play with. You can pretty much make anything a touch surface with it. That was my presentation, and I got amazing amount of extra credit for doing it. But I did take that knowledge of knowing microcontrollers, knowing how electronics and programming work to manipulate Tractor and map the remix decks so I could put tracks into them and adjust all the inputs and start and stop different tracks and actually produce the song right there in class.
Very cool. Out of curiosity, what would happen if you didn't hold that copper wire?
Wouldn't work because it relies on a complete circuit. So yeah, you would have needed it.
As we all know, you're a DJ right now. As I understand, you were also a professional DJ. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I used to live in Florida. I grew up in Central Florida, and there have been several places where I picked up small gigs. Let's start with the first one. In Cocoa Beach, there was a club out on there, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it. It's just been a long time. I used to do guest appearances there. I used to DJ with a guy named Richie Rich, who really kind of pushed me into doing live shows. That was an eye-opening experience to stand 40 feet above a humongous dance floor with lasers and lights everywhere. And, I had to do more. So through those connections, meeting other DJs, I picked up a couple gigs in Orlando at a place called Firestone. And I don't know if it's still around anymore, but that was the premier dance club of downtown Orlando. And I did 2 gigs there, which were just phenomenal. I also did one of their side rooms, which is kind of like a loungy place. I spun trance for a couple hours. Also in Tampa, there was a club called Suncoast, which is your alternative lifestyles, let's just say. And it was a resort type place. So they had lots of different clubs there. And I did 2 shows there and did what is called a circuit party with them. There's just a lot of little in-betweens. Also did a couple shows over the internet, broadcasted to probably crowds of like 2,000-3,000 people. For the life of me, I can't remember the exact name of the show, but it was through the local radio station in Orlando, which also broadcasted in Tampa on another station. And it was pretty awesome. Those were all, paid gigs. It was nice to do something that you like to do on such a scale and get money for it.
So why not still do it?
Really, it's because of where I live. I mean, I live in Arkansas, and I can't say Arkansas is known for its club scene. Also, yeah, it's like, okay, I'll go play for a field of cows. No, there are some clubs here, and I'm sure there's like a little bit of a scene down towards the college area, with just a limited amount of time and not really knowing anyone. Also, I don't have like a current collection of music, I guess. I mean, I have a couple songs here and there within the last couple of years, but if you're not one of these people who hound music as it comes out, then you're probably not going to have a gig. I could jump in and do old school if they wanted to do something like that, which would be kind of cool, because I love any of the original techno from like the 90s and early 2000s. It was a lot of really funky stuff then, and house music is basically just new disco.
So you've been DJing for quite some time now, and you keep mentioning your love for the older style electronic and trance music. Can you go into a little bit, talk about how that's changed over the years? Because, I mean, music's always undergoing change, and I'm sure it's changed quite a bit from the mid-90s to the mid-20-teens.
I would say the fundamentals of, electronic is pretty much the same. Anyone who's done music theory I'm sure Syx String here can agree that really the construction of dance music doesn't change a whole lot. Sure, you get different genres, but looking at techno, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just the quality has really been ramped up. It's under a lot more focus from vocalists. So you have Paul Van Dyke from 15 years ago to today is like pretty much night and day. I mean, he did stuff with Tori Amos and stuff like that in the past, but nowadays it's so much fidelity involved. Going from a vinyl record where you put the needle on and you hear all the clicks and pops, which are awesomely nostalgic, but an MP3 doesn't have that. It's nice and clear, you know, a FLAC file is like almost lossless and crisp as anything. So the production value has increased, but the fundamental and the foundation of dance music, as far as trance and house music, is still pretty much the same thing.
All right, awesome. So we're going to move into sort of the technical discussion for this episode. I know there's a lot of people out there that are all asking the big question: what goes into a wub?
Well, yeah, that's more for like an Alex S type person. Everyone calls me the wub queen, but really, you know, if you look at what I do, I don't play a whole lot of dubstep. Is pretty much what coined the term wub, I think. I mean, I play a lot of the other stuff, but a wub, that's your oscillator meets your distortion, meets your, you know, the crunch, and then the ubiquitous drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend to be a producer, but you know what goes into a wub is a lot of sitting in front of a computer playing in FL Studio or Ableton, I guess.
Do you have a preference about digital audio workstations such as FL Studio or Ableton?
We're going to take a trip back in time to One Trick's adventure with the first time she ever experienced any kind of EDM. At the age of 16 was when I first walked into a club. Absolute first time I've ever heard dance music. And I thought it was the most glorious thing in the world. And I watched these DJs the entire time, mixing vinyls back and forth, thinking it was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I wanted to do that right then and there. I wanted to learn from that moment. And, you know, I'm 16, I'm living at home, I don't have a lot of money, so I can't just go out and buy turntables and vinyl records. I didn't even know where to buy these records in the first place, but I did have a computer, and I started producing music, trance music, with a program called Cool Edit, which later was taken over by Sony, and I think they branded it Acid or something like that. And I produced 5-minute long, kind of boring techno songs just from samples I found on BBSs because there was no real internet at the time. Fast forward to now, if I was to sit down and produce, which I actually tried to make a remix of Love Is in Bloom because I love that song so much. That's probably one of my most favorite songs ever. I got probably halfway through it, and I might finish it one day now that I'm talking about it, and people are probably going to ask me about it. But I used FL Studio because it was the most comprehensive for me to pick up quickly and throw tracks together and master. I would like to get into possibly using Ableton, or another one that I used a long time ago, though I don't know if it's any good, is Cubase. I used Cubase several years ago, and it was pretty easy to do stuff. FL Studio is probably the one I use right now.
Everybody in the IRC, make sure to ping One Trick about her Love Is in Bloom remix.
Yeah.
oh my God. I'm going to come home from school or work, and there's just going to be like 10,000 messages.
All right, so One Trick, you've come from a classical background and a DJ background. Obviously, there are some very defining characteristics of electronic music. It wasn't even possible until we were able to make electronical sounds and organize it into music. What exactly is the anatomy that makes it so defining as a genre?
So what defines electronic music? I mean, anyone who's tried to produce anything in FL Studio or even on a fairly decent keyboard knows that everything is just an oscillator. So you're not really playing an instrument. You're just modulating some frequencies. That is the foundation of it. But really what it comes down to is you can take that modulation and turn it into just about anything out there. I mean, you can make it sound like a bass drum. Like I mentioned earlier, the 808 is the go-to for ultimate bass drum kicks. I mean, that is countless uses in everything electronic or hip hop or rap. I mean, 808s have been around forever. In fact, 808 State is probably one of my groups that I really like. And if you kids don't know what 808 State is, you better go figure it out because they're pretty cool.
As an aside, too, we should probably explain what an 808 is.
Well, the 808 is actually well, let's take another history lesson here from DJ One Trick. The 808 was an instrument, a drum machine created by Roland, like a long time ago, 1980, which is almost as old as I am. But yeah, really the 808 was a sequencer. It had 16 buttons on it, so you could select where you want your drums to kick, and had a mixer, and it had modulated samples in it. One of them was, the most famous one is the kick drum. And an 808 kick drum is like the deepest bass kick you can possibly get. Obviously, there's other drum machines these days, but the 808 was really the beginning of, hey, we can make dance music with this, or hey, we can make hip hop and rap with this. And that 808, you know, you can go to just about any musician and say 808, and they're going to know what you're talking about.
So far as electronic music, I very much am not an electronic music person. So for somebody like me that has no idea about electronic music really at all, what are some of the defining characteristics of each of these genres? And what are the things that go into them, and how do you define them, and what about them is interesting to mix for you?
Well, let's start with my two favorite. Trance music, of course, is, I hate using this word droning, but really it is, because you got the really long measures and slow changes and progressions into more and more layers of music. So it typically starts out with, you know, you got your bass drum, and then it adds the snare or maybe hi-hat in there, maybe both, and then builds up a little bit more. You get some arps in the back, maybe some modulation in there, and it keeps building and building and building. And maybe, you know, there's a build and a drop, but typically it's smooth. It gives you that feeling of maybe going fast, like you're flying. I listen to trance while I'm driving, and I end up going much faster than I should be. And then you look at house. House music is basically new disco music. It's got a shuffle beat. It's, when I say shuffle beat, you got the trance that's just uns, 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 and house is more, you know, kind of like a shuffle of the beat. So it kind of makes you want to move your hips a little bit more. You know, you get that disco feel in there. You get the sometimes there's a funky bass. You get some wah, some flange in there. A lot of house has vocals that are just completely off the wall at times. And trance is kind of like, oh, you know.
Do you sort of have that sort of the hi-hat dealy going on with, like, I remember the disco music, it's more like the doom,
exactly,
that kind of stuff.
You get house music, it's like, oh my god, am I back in the 70s, but it's got a kicking beat to it. It's just crazy. And of course, there's subgenres of house. There's like Chicago house, deep house, whatever floats your boat on that. There's so many genres in EDM, it's mind-blowing.
It really just all sounds like a Final Fantasy battle theme to me.
Not much of a gamer, but yes, it does. Of course, you have the other big genre in this fandom, which is dubstep. You're looking at 70, 90 beats per minute, and it's got that telltale whoa, 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 whoa sound. It's all distorted up. It's got big, heavy drops in it where it just builds up and then just melts your face off, Indiana Jones Nazi style. If you want examples of these wubs, everyone knows Alex S.
Yep.
You want house, you want to look at Silverhound, you want trance, look at JB. These are all fantastic examples of these genres. And there's subgenres in there, because you have people like Taps, and Taps is just nuts with his, was he using a launch pad? And he just goes crazy with that.
When it comes to the Brony fandom, how do you think the electronic music within the fandom stacks up to electronic music in general or stuff outside the fandom?
I am probably going to get a lot of hatred for this, but there is a lot of potential for producers out there to evolve beyond bronies and have some real exposure, in the real world. There is a humongous world outside of bronies, obviously, but to get into it, to break into the industry, so to say, it would require a lot more than, I would say, 99% of what's being produced and put out. There are a couple artists that are an exception. I'm not gonna name names or anything. Not to say that people aren't very creative, and not to say that people aren't as professional as they can be, but there's a room for a lot of growth for people, and I'm not downing anyone for anything. I encourage them to grow their talents, because there is tons and tons of potential. Like I said earlier, this fandom has so many great artists and musicians and everything, but they got to take that step beyond the bronies to expand their talents and get themselves out there. There are just so many amazing people. I hope they really grasp their talent and grow it into something amazing, because that would just be fantastic.
I like the sense of kind of how you view the fandom, in that it's sort of as if the fandom is a wonderful kindergarten in a way to hone your skills, to put stuff out there and not be judged as harshly as the world might, and kind of have sort of a supporting family to help you grow, really.
Absolutely. To make an analogy, really, I see it's kind of like the nice flower pot. You plant your seed, you get it to grow, and it's wonderful. It's great to look at. It makes you happy. But there are steps to take, and there's more growth that has to be made before you go plant it outside in the big world. And that's really how I see it. A lot of these people are in the flower pot. They look amazing, but it would take a lot more to survive in the real world.
Hear that, everyone? You're all very beautiful flowers.
You're very beautiful flowers, and you're pretty.
Well, you talk about surviving in the real world. I think it's really interesting. You actually started off in Florida. Some of my friends, they're really involved with the EDM community. They handle different DJs and producers at major music festivals. And I've always heard Florida is such a cutthroat area for that kind of music. There's certain expectations involved with a producer or DJ. Did you have any kind of experiences with that while you were down there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I always imagined myself starting out to be fairly decent, and DJs build this kind of ego around their persona. Because you step into a club, you're like, oh yeah, I'm the DJ. I'm going to lay down the fat beats, and I'm awesome. Check out my ride and my records and all. And then you get someone from the music industry walks up to you and go, damn, you're terrible. And you're just like, oh, sad face. But it's true. Especially in Florida, because Florida is solely built around tourism and entertainment. And if you can't be the best at what you do, really, they could just replace you with someone much better. And it doesn't really take much, because there are so many DJs in this world. I mean, everyone can pretty much buy a mix track for $100 and go, look, I'm a DJ. But it's those people who really dedicate themselves to it and grow beyond the ego and put it aside and get their technique out and really get it going. They're the ones who are going to be playing at these things, not someone who just basically got some turntables for Christmas.
So basically, people need to go beyond their garden.
Yeah. Go beyond your garden. I love that song. Sorry.
So one trick, for those looking to get into DJing or electronic music, where do you recommend starting, and what kind of advice do you have for those to get rolling?
Step number 1, buy awesome sunglasses. Step number 2, be awesome. Okay, but if you want a serious answer, if you want to get into something, always go with the most inexpensive beginning. it's going to be another one of those hate mail, one trick things, but go buy a mix track. I mean, really, it's a MIDI controller. It does everything you need. It doesn't cost a lot. You can sit down with Virtual DJ, throw some songs into it, and play with it and see how it works. And you didn't invest a ton of money. So really, if you find that it's not something you're good at, or you lose interest in it, you didn't invest a whole lot, and you can maybe even just give it to somebody who might want to try it out. And that's where I say you should start. Just, you don't have to go out and buy CDJs. You don't need a humongous mixer, or you don't have to go out and buy time-coded techniques, and just have fun with it. As far as learning, there are hundreds, literally hundreds of videos on YouTube that'll easily show you how to get started. But the easiest thing you can do, turn on the sync button. It is like easy mode for mixing. It'll give you an idea where you should start and what sounds good. And record yourself constantly. Always record it. It doesn't matter if you completely screw up. It doesn't matter if it sounds terrible. Record it, listen to it, and identify those places where you have problems, and ask other DJs. You know, I sit on IRC a lot. I'm on Twitter. You can say, you know, I'm having problems with this transition between this song and this song. Is there, you know, a pointer you can help me with? And you know what? I might have something that'll brighten your day. Other DJs help. You know, if they're not so busy, I'm sure someone can offer you a piece of advice. I asked many DJs, hey, how'd you do that? How did you get this to do this? Especially with the new equipment, because you know, I went from analog turntables to a controller. I'm like, whoa, I can do all kinds of stuff, but I don't know how to use it. I went out and asked people. I got on the Tractor discussion board. I said, well, I saw a guy do this. How'd you do it with Tractor? And they're like, well, you do it this way. I'm like, oh, well, that's awesome. And now I know how to do it. So, you know, that's why I say start out just inexpensive, record yourself, and have fun with it. That's the most important part. Have fun with it.
So, One Trick, in talking to us, you've listed off all these various, I don't even know what they are, pieces of equipment. What is it that you use?
I use a blender, and I like to whip it around the room. No,
some ice.
And some ice,
some
margarita mix.
Some rum. Yeah, it's fantastic. We're on the same page. We all know. Yes. This is exactly what you need for electronic music.
I started out with a Mix Track Pro, and it was pretty awesome. I actually DJ'd Mixology for like 6 to 8 months with a Mix Track. So, I mean, it's possible to create good sound with a limited piece of equipment. Obviously, I did remap a lot of the buttons and stuff on it, but that was my foundation for starting. And I went, you know, everyone loves stuff. Loves the show. I'm gonna take it a step further, and I bought a Newmark N4, and it is a 4-track controller. It allows me to remap pretty much everything on the fly. Like I can remap each deck to a different position on the crossfader. You know, I got all kinds of tempo controls, and all of the EQ is built into it. It's wonderful. It's still on the inexpensive side. It's not like a professional piece of equipment. Like if someone asked me to do a big club, I wouldn't bring an N4. But not saying I wouldn't take it to a Brony convention or continue doing mixology with it, because it is a fantastic piece of hardware. Outside of that, really, that's all you need. I use Tractor. I'm a big talker of Tractor. I love Tractor inside and out. Some people use Virtual DJ. It's obviously cheaper to buy. Tractor's like $80. I don't know how much Virtual DJ is, but there's also free versions of both of them that have limited capabilities. There's also Mix, and Mix runs on Linux, Windows, and it's getting better like all the time. But I've used all of them because you never know, something might be better. But my basic gear is the N4, Tractor, various software to get my broadcast out, and like this lovely microphone is just a Shure microphone plugged into a PreSonus, and that's how I talk to people when I'm doing my show. But yeah, I mean, the two most basic pieces of equipment, the N4 and tractor.
Nice.
Awesome.
So, in that mix of I Am Octavia that you so graciously bestowed upon us, would you like to talk about what you modified in it, or in what you were doing?
Sure. Actually, it started out as I got the original song from Eiley because I love Eiley. She is probably one of the coolest people I know. I love Eiley so much. She also did the little Celestia sample on my show that I play all the time. But I heard this and I'm like, wow, I love Titanium and I love this, but I can't dance to it because there is like no beat. So I actually found somebody who made a Titanium remix of I Am Octavia, but the fidelity was terrible and it didn't fit into the style that I wanted. So I went back and I took the original song, I took a beat that was just a standard kind of shuffle house beat, and I took the first 16 bars of the original Titanium song, you know, the guitar part, and I put them into 3 different tracks in the tractor. I started out with the house mix, I cut the mid out a little bit, and I cut the top end off a little bit so it fits into the rest of the I Am Octavia song. I bring in the loop, the 16 bar loop of Titanium to get that rolling. Because if you've heard the original I Am Octavia song, it just starts off with the talking and the music and everything. And I didn't want that. I needed a club mix, something that I could mix into a long section. So I created all that, and I bring in the original song while the beat is still playing in the background. I dip it out a little bit as the Titanium beat kicks in, so that it doesn't fight each other, because you get a little bit of bass fight if you don't mix it just right. But I was doing it all live, and I apologize to people listening. That mix that is playing is not going to be the clean finished version that I will release here. I was going to release it at Nightmare Nights, but I ran into some recording issues. But really, in the end, it turned out sounding good, and we played it there, or I played it there at Nightmare Nights, and it sounded fantastic. Oh my god, it sounded so much better than I thought it would when it actually came through those speakers so loud. And I look up, and sure enough, the dance floor was in pieces. Like literally, it was broken. I was like, yes, I have achieved property damage. I am horse.
That's how you know a song's good.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's good.
And it sounds fantastic, and we just want to thank you so much for spending time with us to kind of enlighten us all about electronic music. It's just been fantastic talking to you tonight.
It's been very pleasant. I really enjoyed this, guys. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming on.
Alright, so that's all the time we have for this week, but be sure to stay tuned to Everfree. We have on Saturday, Eastern Sounds at 1 p.m., Mixology with our guest DJ One Trick at 6 p.m., Saturday Night Songs with Michelle Krieber at 9 p.m., and then on Sunday we have Blue Screen Bronies at 7 p.m. and Pegasisters Live at 9 p.m. All those times are in Central. So thanks again to One Trick for joining us and enlightening us all about the electronic music. And until next time, this is
Infinite Pony.
Starlight Ironhoof.
Syx String.
Zeta Prime.
and Forest Rain. We'll see you next week.